The world was completely different. No Netflix, Spotify, or headphones to fill the silence of a night 40,000 years ago. Electric light hadn't been invented yet, nor was there the constant hum of modern civilization. Only the hypnotic crackle of a campfire broke the stillness, its flames dancing and casting fantastic shadows on the rock walls of a cave. The whisper of the wind through ancient leaves created a natural melody that cradled the darkness. And then, suddenly, something magical happened. A human voice rose. It wasn't a word, it was a pure, melodic sound that seemed to dance with the flames and converse with the wind. The voice is deep, profound, laden with an emotion that transcends languages not yet invented. Others join in, first timidly, then with growing confidence. High voices intertwine with low ones, creating instinctive harmonies that no modern composer could plan. The rhythm of stones hitting synchronously adds to the primitive symphony, each beat echoing through the stone walls like a collective heart. The breath through hollow bones adds an ethereal, almost supernatural melody that seems to connect the world of the living with that of the ancestors. This wasn't just music, it was humanity's first social network, where every note carried vital information about tribal identity, social status, intentions, and emotions. It was the first collective therapy, where traumas were processed through lamenting chants and victories celebrated through war hymns. It was the first sacred ritual, where the profane transformed into the sacred through the transformative power of sound. It was the moment our species discovered that it could transform sounds into emotions, noises into memories, sounds into pure magic. But what really happened when our ancestors created the first playlist in history? How did these first human DJs select their tracks? And why, even surrounded by modern technology, do we still feel an ancestral shiver run down our spine when we hear tribal drums echoing in the darkness? The evolution of the first instrument, the human body. Our musical journey began long before the first Homo sapiens walked the earth. Around 6 million years ago, when our ancestors descended from African trees in search of new territories in the savannas, they already possessed something revolutionary hidden in their throats, vocal cords capable of producing an impressive range of sounds that surpassed any other primate. Early hominids, like Australopithecus afarensis, yes, the famous Lucy discovered in Ethiopia, probably communicated through a complex system of territorial shouts, warning grunts, intimate whispers, and elaborate gestures. But imagine the constant evolutionary pressure. In a savanna full of hungry predators, unpredictable climate changes, and fierce competition for resources, whoever could communicate better, more nuanced, and more effectively would have dramatically higher chances of survival and reproduction. Fossil evidence from Homo heidelbergensis, our ancestor from 400,000 years ago, who inhabited areas from Africa to Europe, shows that they already possessed the necessary anatomy to produce complex sounds that would rival modern singers. The hyoid bone, a small horseshoe-shaped structure that supports our larynx and allows fine control of vocalization, was perfectly developed and positioned. It was as if evolution was meticulously tuning the perfect instrument, the human body as a complete orchestra. But here's the truly fascinating aspect. Modern neurobiologists have discovered that the same brain regions responsible for language processing, Broca's and Wernicke's areas, also precisely control rhythm, melody, and harmonic structure. This means that music and communication evolved together, like twin sisters of human consciousness, each strengthening and refining the other over millions of years. Imagine a group of Homo erectus 1.8 million years ago, gathered in an African clearing at the end of a successful hunting day. The group leader, still covered in sweat and dust, emits a deep, prolonged sound, not an alarm cry or utilitarian communication, but something entirely different. Something that carries emotion, celebration, group identity. The others instinctively recognize it. It is the sound of a successful hunt, different from the sound of mourning, the sound of warning, the sound of mating. Gradually, through generations, this sound becomes a recognizable pattern, then an elaborate melody, finally a complex celebration chant that will be passed down from parents to children for thousands of years, carrying not only joy, but vital cultural information about hunting techniques, tribal territory, and collective identity. Archaeological discoveries. The first recording studios in 2008, German archaeologists led by Dr. Nicholas Conrad made a discovery that literally changed our understanding of primitive musical sophistication. In the Hohle Fels cave in southern Germany, buried under layers of sediment that held secrets from tens of thousands of years, they found something extraordinary, a meticulously crafted flute made from griffon vulture bone, precisely dated to 42,000 years ago using carbon-14 techniques. This was not just a crude or experimental instrument. It was irrefutable evidence that our Homo sapiens ancestors already possessed musical sophistication that rivaled modern instruments. The flute had 5 perfectly aligned and proportionally spaced holes, capable of producing complex musical scales, precise harmonic intervals, and elaborate melodies that could easily integrate into a contemporary orchestra. But consider the profound implication. A Homo sapiens who had just completed the epic migration out of Africa, facing gigantic mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, and climate conditions that would kill most modern humans in a matter of hours, consciously decided to dedicate precious time, a resource more valuable than food, to create elaborate music. Why? What evolutionary force was powerful enough to justify this investment? The answer is scattered across hundreds of archaeological sites discovered around the world, each revealing a different facet of Paleolithic musical culture. In the Dordogne region, France, archaeologists discovered sophisticated drums made of mammoth hide stretched over natural rock cavities, creating resonance boxes with surprisingly advanced acoustic properties. In Australia, primitive didgeridoos crafted from eucalyptus branches hollowed out by termites, some more than 35,000 years old. In South Africa, intricate rattles made of dried gourds filled with specific seeds, each type producing unique timbres for different rituals. Each Paleolithic culture developed its own natural recording studio, taking advantage of specific acoustic characteristics of the environment. The famous Lascaux caves, known worldwide for their spectacular cave paintings, possess extraordinary acoustics that were discovered almost by accident by modern researchers. Detailed studies conducted with high-precision equipment revealed that the locations with the best sound reverberation, where natural echo amplifies and enriches sounds, are exactly where we find the most elaborate and symbolically complex paintings. Our ancestors did not choose these locations by chance. They possessed a deep intuitive knowledge of how visual and sonic art together created a total transcendental experience, a primitive virtual reality that transported participants into altered states of consciousness. Each cave was like a Paleolithic multimedia theater, where dancing torchlights, enigmatic paintings, and ritual music combined to create experiences that were probably more intense than any modern spectacle. Canadian archaeologist Stephen Brown, a specialist in musical evolution, called this the musical proto-language theory. According to his extensive research, before we developed specific words with defined meanings, we communicated through melodic sequences loaded with emotion, context, and cultural information. It was as if each tribe possessed its own unique musical language, a complex idiom of sounds that carried precise information about territory, intentions, emotional states, social hierarchy, and cultural identity. Sonic rituals, when music was medicine and magic. Picture this, a full moon night 30,000 years ago in the heart of Paleolithic Europe. The cold air cuts the skin like ice razors, but around the communal campfire, something deeply magical is happening that warms more than any flame. A revered elder guardian of tribal memory rhythmically beats an elaborate drum made of carefully treated mammoth hide stretched over a framework of intertwined ribs. The rhythm is not random. It is a specific pattern passed down through generations, each beat carrying precise ritual meaning. Other tribe members gradually join in, youngsters with bone flutes producing ethereal melodies, women with stone rattles creating complex rhythmic textures, children singing in harmonies they learned from birth. But it's not just entertainment. It's an elaborate ritual that connects the visible world of the living to the invisible one, of ancestors, spirits, and still unnamed gods. Detailed anthropological studies of modern isolated tribes, such as the Kung of the Kalahari Desert in Africa, or the Australian Aborigines who preserved 60,000-year-old traditions, give us fascinating clues about how our Paleolithic ancestors used music as advanced spiritual technology. During healing rituals that can last entire nights, shamans enter deep, altered states of consciousness through repetitive chants, controlled breathing, and hypnotic beats that synchronize brainwaves. Neuroscientifically, we know today that specific rhythms, especially frequencies between 40 and 100 Hz, can synchronize gamma brainwaves, inducing documented mystical experiences, release of endogenous neurotransmitters like DMT, and access to states of consciousness that modern medicine is only beginning to understand and utilize therapeutically. Imagine the Homo sapiens of Çatalhöyük in present-day Turkey, 9,000 years ago, living in one of humanity's first proto-urban cities. Their carefully excavated dwellings contained music rooms, circular spaces with meticulously calculated acoustics, where archaeologists found broken instruments ritually buried, along with food offerings, decorated pottery, and precious personal objects. For them, breaking an instrument after an intense ritual was not destruction or waste, but conscious transformation. The physical object symbolically died so that its sonic essence, its musical soul, would live eternally in the spiritual world, continuing to serve the community invisibly but truly. Tribal chants served multiple documented evolutionary functions. First, they synchronized groups during critical collective activities, such as cooperative hunting of large animals, building complex shelters, or risky migrations through unknown territories. Second, they strengthened deep social bonds through the shared neurological experience of producing sounds in harmony, creating stronger ties than biological family. Third, they transmitted absolutely critical cultural information through musical narratives that stuck in memory with much greater effectiveness than simple spoken words. Think of the oral epics that have survived to this day. The Iliad and the Odyssey were originally complex songs sung by bards who memorized over 15,000 verses through elaborate melodic structures. Similarly, our Paleolithic ancestors preserved essential survival knowledge, migration routes across continents, sophisticated hunting and gathering techniques, genealogies that determined tribal alliances, origin myths that defined cultural identity, through melodies that became ingrained in memory much more effectively and lastingly than any writing system. The natural symphony, decoding the primitive soundscape. But the Paleolithic Spotify didn't just include human-made music. The natural world was a constant, infinitely complex symphony that our ancestors learned to read like a vital score full of crucial information for daily survival. Renowned ornithologist and soundscape expert Bernie Krause spent decades documenting how modern tribal populations who preserved ancestral knowledge can identify more than 300 different species of birds just by their calls, and each carries precise information about impending climate changes, the exact time of year, the nearby presence of specific predators, the availability of seasonal food resources, and even the reproductive conditions of other species that affect the entire ecosystem. For a Paleolithic hunter-gatherer whose survival depended on constant environmental information, the soundscape was literally an integrated GPS system, weather forecast, predator radar, and resource map, all functioning simultaneously 24 hours a day. The sudden silence of crickets and other nocturnal insects unequivocally indicated the approach of a predator large enough to cause ground vibration. The specific call of certain migratory birds announced storms with accuracy superior to any modern meteorology. The characteristic noise of nocturnal insects revealed the proximity and quality of fresh water sources. The pattern of mammal calls indicated not only their presence, but their emotional state, intentions, and even health. Our ancestors lived immersed in this infinitely complex, natural sound internet, constantly decoding information that literally meant the difference between life and death for the entire tribe. Even more fascinating, growing archaeological evidence suggests that they consciously incorporated these natural sounds into their ritual musical compositions, creating a fusion between human culture and nature that has been lost in modern civilization. Paleolithic flutes found at European archaeological sites precisely reproduce the mathematically perfect calls of specific local birds, suggesting that primitive musicians not only imitated nature, but created elaborate musical dialogues with other species. Drums mimicked the exact rhythm of animal hooves in motion, creating calls that could attract or repel specific fauna. It was as if they were creating sophisticated remixes of nature, biomimetic music that functioned as both art and survival technology. Finnish researcher Helmi Järviluoma discovered that traditional communities develop extremely detailed mental sound maps of their territories, where each forest, river, mountain, and valley has a unique acoustic signature that functions as a precise auditory navigation system. Our Paleolithic ancestors, who constantly traveled through vast landscapes without permanent visual landmarks, probably possessed this capacity developed to levels we can hardly imagine today, when most modern humans cannot navigate without electronic GPS. Musical neuroplasticity. How music sculpted our brain. Here we come to the most fascinating scientific heart of this story. Music not only accompanied our evolution as a species, it literally shaped our neural architecture, sculpting brain connections that made us more intelligent, creative, and socially sophisticated. Revolutionary functional neuroimaging studies show that when we listen to music, we simultaneously activate brain regions responsible for motor processing, emotional regulation, memory formation, linguistic processing, and complex temporal perception. It's as if music is a complete workout for the human brain, activating more neural circuits simultaneously than any other known activity. Harvard neuroscientist Anirudh Patel proposed the revolutionary transformative effect theory. Music, by requiring simultaneous processing of rhythm, melody, harmony, temporal structure, and emotional context, forced our brains to develop dramatically more sophisticated neural connections than any other primate. Essentially, primitive drumming around the campfire may have been humanity's first cognitive workout, developing capacities that later enabled complex language, mathematics, strategic planning, and abstract thought. Imagine our ancestors gathered around the ancestral campfire. When they sing together in harmony, their nervous systems literally synchronize in a measurable way. High-resolution EEG studies show that people singing in a group exhibit coordinated brain waves across multiple frequencies, a phenomenon researchers call collective neural connection or temporary group mind. This neurological synchronization had obvious and measurable evolutionary advantages. Groups that could coordinate musically demonstrated superior coordination during complex cooperative hunts, elaborate constructions that required precise teamwork, and risky migrations that depended on group cohesion. Music was, literally, advanced teamwork technology that determined which groups survived and thrived. Even more impressive, neuroscientific evidence suggests that Paleolithic children exposed from birth to musically rich environments likely developed brains with greater neural plasticity, better auditory memory, more sophisticated linguistic abilities, and greater creativity for problem solving. Music was advanced cognitive education functioning automatically even before agriculture was invented. Evolutionary anthropologist Robin Dunbar from the University of Oxford discovered through controlled experiments that group singing releases endorphins and oxytocin in much greater quantities than other equivalent social activities. For our ancestors living under constant stress from predation, hunger, and tribal conflict, collective music was literally a natural drug that strengthened tribal bonds, reduced anxiety and depression, and created psychological resilience, all absolutely essential for survival in hostile environments. What we lost, modern musical disconnection. Now comes the question that should haunt us every night. What happened to our primitive musical connection? How did a species that evolved with music as a central survival technology become so passive and musically disconnected? Statistics reveal that an average modern adult listens to music about 4 hours a day, but 90% is recorded digitally processed music consumed passively through headphones that isolate us from the world. Our Paleolithic ancestors experienced music exclusively live, participatory, physically active, connected to meaningful rituals, and constantly changing natural soundscapes. The neurological difference is dramatically documented. When we actively produce music, singing, playing instruments, dancing, clapping, we activate extensive neural networks that include the motor cortex, cerebellum, basal ganglia, and multiple regions of the limbic system. During passive listening, even to complex music, we activate only a fraction of these networks. Our ancestors were constantly exercising complete neural circuits through active musical participation that lasted hours daily. Furthermore, we have almost completely lost our ancestral ability to read natural soundscapes. Alarming studies show that modern urban children can identify only 10-15 different natural sounds, compared to hundreds that a Paleolithic child would instinctively recognize before the age of 10. We live in artificial acoustic bubbles that have disconnected us from the natural sound internet that was our first information technology. But not all is lost forever. Modern therapies are rediscovering and scientifically validating the transformative power of participatory music. Therapeutic drumming circles are being used with impressive success to treat severe depression, chronic anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Collective singing is being prescribed to strengthen the immune system and reduce inflammation. Ritual music is being integrated into treatments for addictions and personality disorders. It's as if we are reconnecting ancestral neural circuits that modernity had systematically deactivated. Contemporary communities like Burning Man, outdoor electronic music festivals, immersive sound healing experiences, and community music movements are unconsciously recreating central aspects of the Paleolithic musical experience. Collective, participatory, physically active music connected to meaningful rituals, integrated with natural elements and transcendental experiences. The crucial difference is that our ancestors didn't need to rediscover this connection through weekend workshops or specialized therapies. It was simply life, naturally integrated into every aspect of daily existence. Conclusion: ancestral echoes in modern hearts. So, what does all this mean for us, residents of 2025, digitally connected but sonically disconnected? Perhaps the answer lies in the rare moments when we still feel that primitive shiver run down our spine. When a choir of 80,000 voices rises in unison in a stadium, creating a collective experience that transcends individuality. When tribal drums echo during a movie, awakening memories that are not ours. when the profound silence of nature suddenly connects us with something immensely greater than our daily concerns. These are not just nostalgic reflections or romanticizing the past. They are neural echoes of 300,000 years of musical evolution, reminders encoded in our DNA that we were musical before we were civilized, rhythmic before we were rational, sonically connected before we were digitally connected. The Stone Age Spotify was not a playlist for passive consumption. It was an experience of total and transformative connection with the tribal group, with living nature, with the invisible sacred, with one's deep self. Every sound had an evolutionary purpose, rich cultural context, real transformative power that changed states of consciousness and strengthened community bonds. Today, we have instant access to all music ever created in human history, but we have lost the ability to create truly meaningful silence. We have headphones that isolate our ears from the world, but our ancestors had ears that connected them to the entire universe through infinitely rich soundscapes. Perhaps it's time to, at least occasionally, turn off Spotify, leave the noisy cities, sit around a real campfire, and rediscover what it means to make music with our hands, our voices, and our hearts completely open. Because there, in the midst of the ancestral darkness and the profound silence that our species has known for millennia, we can still hear echoing humanity's first soundtrack, the one our ancestors created when they discovered that sounds could heal wounded souls, unite fragmented tribes, and connect earth to sky through sacred frequencies. And who knows, in this moment of reconnection with our deepest musical heritage, we might rediscover something that all modern technology has not yet managed to replace: the genuinely transformative power of truly human, participatory, live music, connected to the ancestral mystery that still pulses in our hearts. If this sonic journey through the millennia has awakened something ancestral in you, leave a like and subscribe for more fascinating explorations of what makes us profoundly human. And in the comments, tell us, when was the last time you truly heard the silence?